Well, now I get to say good afternoon, brothers and sisters. I wanted to start by saying that, like this morning, this is awesome to be here with all of you. It's been a long time, been way too long that I've seen many of you, and it's just great to be here. To have those conversations and reacquaint with real friends. I also thought about this coming into this conversation. It's been a while since I actually spoke at the Bangor Cross Center here. I think 2014 was the last time I had a chance to speak. And much like when Speaker Fecto we had the video this morning of people that we lost in the Maine legislature, I can't help but thinking the last time that I had a chance to speak here, that morning, Amy Terrio had been murdered by her partner. And, and it's important to remember those people, what's happened to them. So I just want to bring that up more than anything because it's been 8 years, and I think it's important to remember those things. And I certainly want to thank Drew and Bev and John Hennessy and the entire staff for putting this together today. Like I said, it's been great, and having the opportunity to be back with people is just, amazing. For those of you who don't know, my name is Troy Jackson. I'm a fifth-generation logger from Allagash, and I have the unbelievable honor of serving as the president of the Maine Senate. To say that I'm proud of where I come from would be an understatement. It's clear from the moment that you step into my office at the State House, the first thing that you're going to see when you cross the threshold is the Roussel County seal hanging prominently on display. If you look around, the walls are plastered with images of logging and farming, maps of the county, spanning the state's history, and large, very large, museum-like panels detailing the Rustic War in 1839, a war that I think is still being fought today. Some may say, and it has been said, that I'm running out of wall space and these mementos are getting out of hand. But I disagree, because I want every person who enters my office to understand who I am, the people I'm fighting for, and the places that I care about. I want every student who visits my office, whether they hail from Fort Fairfield, where my good friend Dave McCrae comes from, or from Freeport, where my good friend, former Speaker Gideon, comes from, to be able to look around and know that one day this office could be theirs. I'm living proof of that. And more importantly, to me, I want to be damn sure that I never forget who I am and where I have come from. Because too many people with good intentions have entered politics only to lose themselves in the process. They compromise their values and forget who they are. And all that's left is a trail of broken promises. It happens over and over again on both sides of the aisle. So when I ran for office, I made a promise to myself that I wouldn't fall into that trap, that I would remember why I got elected, why I wanted to run for election. You see, I know what it's like to feel left behind and ignored by your government. I know what it's like to get cast aside by politicians in power because you don't have the money, the prestige, or connections. And truth be told, sometimes still today, I still feel that. So I understand why people get angry at times. I know what it's like to work in an industry where every day the load that you carry gets heavier until one day it breaks you and you're left with nothing. They'll squeeze you to death so that those at the top can reap all the benefits and all the profits. So when I find myself in the midst of competing crises, the chaos of the legislature, and the foolishness of sometimes political world, I try and go back to where I started, why I wanted to be there, what's at stake. I go back to those images, the maps, and the history that's hanging on the wall of my office. That's a constant reminder. They tell a story of hard work and resilience, a story of people who never let their fate up to chance. Mainers aren't waiting for divine intervention. Instead, they work hard for ends meet, that make ends meet, and provide for their families and do right by their neighbors. That's the story of Maine up and down this state. And I was so happy to hear Brother Waxman talk about how we're one Maine. And we are. I mean, I constantly have people talking about, well, that's for southern Maine. And then I have to tell them, you know what? The things that we do get, that I've been able to pass, are because southern Maine legislators fought with me, alongside of me. We are one Maine. You know, the path forward is a lot clearer once we know who we are and where we want to go. We can only change the status quo when we have people in office who understands the hardship that Mainers face every day. It's only when you sit at the kitchen table, staring at an oil bill, wondering how you're going to heat your home, do you understand the gravity of the energy crisis. It's only when you've lain awake at night, hoping that the pain in your chest isn't serious, do you understand that our healthcare system is literally killing people. And it's only when you've had to patch together childcare do you understand that the system that we have today, as much as we've tried to work at it, has been failing working families. You know, there's no doubt, when I spoke a while ago, I had my jacket on. Somebody said, you look like an undertaker. So I took the jacket off because this is not a funeral. Yeah. But it is true that times are tough right now. Not for anyone's fault in this room, but they are tough. But I know who I'm fighting for, and it's what makes me a Democrat. I'm not afraid to disagree with my colleagues or buck the party line, but at the end of the day, I know which party is and has been fighting to build a state that works for regular people. Which party is, and then I also know which party is only interested in a state that works for their bottom line. They say this year is going to be tough, a tough one for Democrats. Talking heads, and I know everyone in this room understands, maybe I'm just talking to those cameras back there. But talking heads on television and pundits in the paper seem to have called the election before the die's even been cast. And I say, bring it on! Show them. I say let's lean in on those naysayers. I say this because if Democrats are going to successfully defend our values, keep the Blaine House, and grow our legislative majorities, we need to acknowledge what we're up against. We must be honest with ourselves about the fight that lays ahead, the fight for Maine's future. Because make no mistake, we've gone up against terrible headwinds before, and our fate is not out of our control. Yes, we have work cut out for us. But I know that the people in this building are not afraid of hard work. It's not in our blood as Mainers. So instead of burying our heads in the sand or writing off our opponents, it's time to dig in, buckle down, and get to work. The stakes could not be higher. And we don't want to get to November only to realize that they are who we thought they were. You see, we have seen this firsthand. We've been here before, and we know how this movie plays out. Republican politicians will say that they want to give back money to Maine people, but what they really want to give is tax cuts for their wealthy friends. And they'll say that they're slashing spending or right-sizing is something that I always remember, right-sizing. When they really mean they want to cut education funding and revenue sharing. That is a tried and true thing that you can expect if things don't go right in November. Leaving property taxpayers to fill in the gaps once again. And they'll say they want to lower health care costs when they mean bringing back junk insurance plans and undermining patient protections. They'll say they're serving ordinary people, but the reality is that they're only serving themselves. And I know, because we've seen these proposals before, but with Democrats in the majority, we've stopped them every damn time. We literally see them with hats and T-shirts that talk about come back 2022. And I say, what the hell are we coming back to that you have ever offered? In 4 years, their tone may have changed, but don't kid yourself for a second. GOP politicians are exactly who we think they are. They've dressed up old ideas with new buzzwords and branding, but the end result is still the same. Corporations win and working people get screwed. And on this, you've heard it all day for the last 2 days. Abortion is just the latest example. Listen to what they've said. Now that Roe versus Wade is likely to be overturned, they claim that it does not mean that a woman will lose choice. And they wouldn't envision any change in the state of Maine. Ladies and gentlemen, we just heard it outside from Jason Levesque. Just heard it outside. That is bullshit. I think the key word in there is yet, because Republican politicians have been vocal about their support for extremist policies about reproductive rights. And their right-wing dream is about to come true. They can taste it. So don't let people tell you that your fears are overblown or that these things can't happen in Maine. Just last year, we fought back 6 different anti-abortion bills. Now, these policies haven't become law because when it came to your rights, Maine Democrats have always held the line. Republican politicians have prioritized stripping people's rights, their freedoms, and their choices, but that's not what I was elected to do, and not what we've been elected to do. The people that I care about, my constituents, they sent me to Augusta to fight for their rights, their freedoms, and their choices. And that's what I see Democrats doing every single day in Augusta. Maine people face no shortage of challenges, no shortage. They deserve more than politicians that play games and feign outrage. Democrats were elected to turn our frustration into action and our fury into solutions. And I think we've done that over the last 4 years despite incredible odds. Take energy. With energy costs soaring due to the spike in natural gas prices and the foreign conflict, Mainers are looking to our electeds for relief. And while Republicans in the legislature have been pointing fingers, Democrats passed a whole pile of bills to try and provide short-term and long-term relief. We cut bureaucratic red tape for heating assistance programs. We created a direct relief program for small businesses. And we passed a law to ensure that Maine people can weigh in on future increases and stop those increases dead in their tracks. And you can be sure that protecting ratepayers will remain one of the top priorities for Governor Mills and the legislative Democrats next session. And what are Republicans doing about this energy crisis? Pulling political stunts and pointing fingers at Democrats, all while corporations use the Russian invasion of Ukraine to jack up prices and make obscene profits on the backs of the American people. It's just smoke and mirrors show. They don't want to go up against their donors or actually solve the actual problems when they think they can use this crisis for political gain. And again, you just have to go outside and see the signs that are up there about gas tax hikes for Biden and Mills. There is no gas tax hikes that have been enacted by either one of them or the Congress or the Maine legislature. But they continually, this is something I say often, is they don't let the truth get in their way. But they don't get it to make their own truth up. And that is infuriating that people fall for that. I know that coming up with real solutions isn't easy, but it is the job that we've been elected to do. You know, the Republican Party just has a completely different agenda. And if you ask them, they'll tell you. And let me be clear, I am not talking about the people that have supported Republicans in the past or might vote for them again. I'm certainly not talking about my friends and neighbors, the Republicans I know and respect. We all do. No, I'm talking about the Republican politicians who do the bidding of big business and stoke the flames of division, attacking our family values and worsening the divide in our communities. That does nothing to lower the cost of energy and solve the inflation crisis. I will, however, give them credit for one thing. They are very good at getting in line and following orders, even if it means their own constituents lose. Otherwise, you might have seen more Republicans who love to wrap themselves in the flag during an election year testify in support of saving our veterans' homes in Caribou and Machias. Instead, they sat on their hands and said nothing, unable to decide if they should do the right thing or turn their back on the most basic act of human decency to give veterans their home into a partisan battle. You know, staying in line has never been something I've been good at. But neither are most Democrats. That's why I like it. Unlike the Republican Party, the Maine Democratic Party is not a monolith. If you don't believe me, just look around. You know, I'm a fifth-generation logger from northern Maine. Governor Mills is a former prosecutor from central Maine, the first woman to serve as Attorney General, and the first woman to serve as governor of this great state. Speaker Fecteau is a first-generation college graduate from Milltown, southern Maine, and the first openly gay speaker in our state's history. And he's just a great, great leader. And in D.C., you have Congresswoman Pingree, an organic farmer from Vinyl Haven, and Congressman Golden, a veteran from Lewiston. I mean, that's pretty diverse. Look at that, just out of those five. And then look at everybody else that serves with us in the House and the Senate. You know, we don't have the same backgrounds and experiences. We don't fall on the same side of every issue. But we are all Democrats because we believe that every Mainer deserves a shot at a good life. And we believe that our laws and our policies should work for everyone, not just the most wealthy and the privileged among us. Sure, this broad coalition of Democrats can be frustrating at times, but it's what makes our party stronger. We owe it to ourselves to embrace our diversity and see our complexity as a source of strength. Simplicity may present fewer challenges, but it does not reflect who we are as a party. And it has never reflected who we are as Mainers. When you drive across this state as much as I do, you know, you start to understand that Mainers are crying out for some sort of change. They're tired of the same people in power sitting around the table and making the same decisions. And they are right. You know, things have to change in some areas. We can't keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect different results. So none of us should be afraid to brush up against the status quo or challenge each other. How can we ever expect to move our state forward if we're blind to our very own flaws? If we don't respond to tough questions or scrutiny by the people who we know and respect, we know that holding each other accountable for what we say and do is not the same as tearing each other down. Yeah. And we have seen the pitfalls of blind devotion. We know the devastation and destruction that follows, and we will undoubtedly live with those consequences for years to come. So while we may yearn for simplicity, let's not mistake that simplicity for unity. Let's not mistake our nuances for chaos and our discussion for conflict. As Democrats, let's embrace our diversity and our complexity. In this age, politics has become for too many a cult. For us, it will forever be a coalition. Again, on the walls of my office, I see the faces of the coalition. I see the faces of lobstermen who wake up to the wind beating against their window from the cold, unforgiving sea, and still choose to head out into the waves of their forefathers. I see the faces of nurses who've gotten off their feet after a 12-hour shift, and still they set their alarm for the next morning over this two-year pandemic. And I see the faces of exhausted parents combing through piles of bills, wondering how they're going to get by. And still, they go to work each and every day and then find time to play with their kids. And I see the faces of teachers who've gone to great lengths to make sure our kids don't fall behind without the fanfare that they deserve. And still, they stay up late to grade papers and prepare lessons for tomorrow. And I see the faces of loggers, past and present. From the loggers with crosscut saws and axes, woolen clothes and hardened faces, to loggers who stood behind me when our backs were up against the wall and we were forced to take a stand. And still, I see a familiar face pack up and head off in the woods. The face of a new generation of loggers, my youngest son. Losing elections is hard, but failing to deliver kills me. This election, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment, it's been said all day, in Maine's history. Do we want to go back where we were, or do we want to go forward for everyone? Do we want to go back to failed policies that hurt working class Mainers and only benefit the wealthiest among us? Or do we want to solve problems that Mainers are facing now and create a stronger future for all of them? I know the future that I want. 4 years ago, I stood before you as a Senate Minority Leader, and today I stand before you as the President of the Maine Senate. And it's not lost on me that I hold this title thanks to the people in this room. Times were tough, but instead of sitting that election out, you got involved. And instead of backing down, you fought back. You built those coalitions in your communities. You rallied around candidates that you believed in, and you embraced tough conversations across the state. And together, we all made history together. And we're not done writing that history in this state. The final page has not been written. We have to go out once again and give it all we have. We have to go out once again, make sure that Governor Mills is in the Blaine House. We've got to make sure that the House Democrats maintain the majority, and we have to make sure the Maine Senate Democrats maintain theirs with or without me. Because there is too much at stake in this election. We have been doing things that make a difference for people while all they have been doing is standing in the way. Let's go out, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get fired up, and let's give it all we got, and let's make history once again for the people of this great state of Maine. I'm looking forward to Governor Mills coming.